So today we're talking about overspending. Now, before we dive in, I want you to think about some other addictions like overdrinking, overeating, even a sex addiction or an addiction to drugs. Now, interestingly, if you think about all of those addictions, unlike overspending, when done in excess, society, our tribe looks down upon it. And because of that, making money excessively or spending money excessively is rewarded and it's actually encouraged by society. I mean, just think about social media. If you want to be seen or heard, you better have the nicest car, the nicest house, the nicest jewelry. And that's why it can be a little more challenging. And I think you need to be a little more aware or pay a little more attention if your issue is overspending. So stay tuned. You're going to love today's episode. If you've ever overindulged in any area of your life or you want to learn how to rein it in if you have an issue. Hi, my name is Annette Bau, your host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 30 years, I have been advising and researching the top 1% of millionaires, and I am passionately obsessed with money, mindset, and the intersection of self-worth and net worth and how the two connect and allow us to live fulfilled and wealthy lives on our terms. I'm a Midwestern girl who had a dream, began investing $25 a month 35 years ago, and today have a multi-million-dollar net worth. I teach the tried and true that only someone with over 3 decades of experience advising millionaires would know. This podcast is different about much more than money. We talk about mindset, success, money blocks, worth barometer, and all aspects of money and topics from practical manifestation, along with real world how-to and everything in between, with the goal of making your journey easier and more fun. Think of this as coffee, actually matcha tea, learning real world common sense money and life advice from a BFF that you can start applying today. If you want to create a financially free life you love, you are in the right place, my friend. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. So let's dive into overspending, why we do it and how to avoid it. Today, you're going to learn why people overspend and make impulse buys. What is lifestyle creep? The process for consciously creating a budget and spending money, and how to create spending habits, stop overspending, and get on track to achieve your financial goals. Our free resource is our retirement plan checklist. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/RPC. You're going to love this free resource as it provides you an overview of the actions you need to take so you can stop worrying about running out of money in retirement, and that you can create a financially free future and retirement on your terms that you love. We share the how-to, the step-by-step checklist that we have discovered over 35 years of working with people during retirement. Again, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/RPC. One of the most common concerns I know about women is that they have a fear of becoming a bag lady and ending up broke in retirement, not having enough money. This guide is going to help you to start creating a plan so that you can stop worrying and start enjoying your life now, as well as in the future when you retire. Or if you are retired, just stay retired and enjoying it. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/RPC. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/27. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. The information we provide is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide you any investment, financial, tax, retirement, or any planning or healthcare advice. All participants agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. So, overspending and overindulgence, I want to give you a little bit of a simplistic overview. So let's think of our brain for 1 minute. We all have this primal brain. It's also known as a toddler or child brain. It's 2 million years old, and it's there to protect us if we're going to get eaten by a lion. It's there to conserve calories. It's emotional and it wants what it wants. It reacts. It's the fight or flight. Just think of a toddler in a store when they're told like they can't get a piece of candy, and then think of it when they're like, they haven't had their nap. That's an example of the toddler or primal brain. But it's the brain that supports us in also making impulse buys and overspending. So it is critical that we understand it. We also have a newer brain that is our prefrontal cortex. And this is our rational brain, and it supports activities such as monitoring our account balances, even if we don't feel like it, setting up a savings account and an emergency fund in case we have unexpected expenses, reducing or avoiding credit card debt, avoiding paying high interest rates, balancing our checking account and credit cards, paying want expenses with either cash or our debit card if we have a tendency of overspending when we use our credit card. All right. So studies show that the prefrontal cortex is fully developed at age 25. Now, in my 35 years of advising wealthy clients and 40 years of researching them, I can assure you that's not always the case. If you do research, you're going to find that there are factors that can contribute to a person's prefrontal cortex not being fully developed. And that includes drugs, stress, certain hormones such as estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, as well as sensory and motor stimulation. So there are different factors that can impact it. Trauma and brain experts agree that some people's prefrontal cortex is not developed, and it could be because of early childhood trauma or a brain injury. And you can just see behaviors that show it. I mean, it's frightening. Right now, you can see a lot of them, but just think of road rage. Somebody gets mad and they're on the road, and the next thing you know, they're following that person over to their house and shooting them. I mean, it's just crazy, but that is an out of control limbic brain. The person's prefrontal cortex is probably not developed. And if it is, their limbic brain is so much more in charge of what they do. They don't know how to push the pause button, and it causes problems. Now, if you've experienced severe trauma or other factors, you may need to get help from a qualified licensed therapist, which I am not. But our conversation today is for those who are capable and interested in changing the habits of overspending and even overindulgence. Meaning, I want you in the driver's seat. So when you're spending money on something, or you're eating something, or you're deciding to have a drink, you're doing it from a place of control as compared to an out of control place. For most people, stopping the habit of overspending is possible, and it just simply requires that you develop new neural pathways, which are known as habits. So it's not that big of a deal, but I just want you to know that going into our talk today. Now that you have an understanding of the 10,000-foot view of the brain and overindulgent behavior, let's review what is overspending. It refers to the act of spending more money than you have available or that you've budgeted for. It can have negative financial consequences, such as accumulation of debt, paying interest on borrowed money, and failing to meet financial goals or obligations. It often leads to strained relationships, even divorce, and a broke retirement. And this isn't an issue that just affects poor people. Many wealthy people, especially rich people, have this problem. You'll see a person that has had an eating problem or a drinking problem, and now their issue is money. They start making a lot of money and they're spending it because, see, they're getting that dopamine hit. They were getting it from alcohol, then they were getting it from food. Now they're getting it maybe from sex. Now they're getting it from money. It doesn't matter. It's the same cycle that occurs with all of those. So how do you stop overspending? Well, the first thing is it requires a discipline, awareness, and a commitment to managing your finances responsibly. So steps you can take to stop overspending. The first thing is just create a budget or a spending plan. By creating a spending plan that outlines your income and all of your expenses, you're going to have an idea of what you need and what you can afford to spend your leftover money on. It's important that you categorize your expenses into fixed areas like rent and mortgage and utilities and insurance, as well as want, groceries, entertainment, traveling. Now, the reason I put groceries in want is because that's an area that so many people overspend in. So just be aware of that. Now, if you need help creating a budget or spending plan, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/2 And if you want to download our magical budget, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/MBT. The next thing you want to do is set limits for the different categories on how much money you can spend and still achieve your financial goals and income goals. Now, this is really important because right now you don't need the money, but you're going to need it in retirement. And the sooner you start saving, the easier it will be to secure a retirement you love. You want to include a category for savings and then prioritize that as a non negotiable expense. That is absolutely critical. And after you get your emergency reserve set up, then you can start investing the money. And again, if you're going to invest it, you want to always use a qualified advisor, really an investment advisor to help you to determine how to invest it. All right, the next thing you want to do is track your spending. Just keep a record of every expense you make, no matter how small. Now, I know that may seem overwhelming to some people or exhaustive. Just commit to doing it for 30 days. This can be done with a pen and paper or by using a budgeting app and tools. Now, we're having this very conversation with my son, who is a senior in college. We've always given him a certain amount of money, but now the requirement is that he's got to every month track his expenses, even though we pay the rent, we pay all the utilities, we pretty much pay for everything. I want him to start identifying what that costs because we're very excited at the end of this year to have him off our payroll. And even though we've kind of done it, it's not been as specific. And I don't think he's been as aware of how much everything costs. He's got the assignment. He's got to go to our insurance agent and figure out how much the insurance on his car is, which is very expensive. And I want him to start being aware of what it costs so that he can start thinking that through when he takes a job. I said, he's got a lot of job offers and some have a lower base, but a higher upside. And I said, if you know how much you need to spend, then you can take a lower paying job that has a lot more potential. And he's really got his sights on becoming financially free, making millions. I'm like, okay, that's your goal. You got to start getting serious about how you're spending your money. And most people don't understand, him included, that wealthy people pay attention to their spending plan, unlike rich people who are just out of control spending. They make it, they spend it, and they don't realize if the cash cow ever runs dry, they've got a problem. You also want to review your spending regularly to identify patterns or areas where you tend to overspend. That's going to be really helpful. The third thing you want to do is identify triggers. So you want to look at your spending patterns and identify areas where you tend to overspend or make impulse purchases. And for me, probably grocery shopping is kind of a problem. Like I go to the grocery store hungry. I don't have a list. Sometimes I have a list, but generally not. And then I buy everything I need. Now, I do eat a really strict diet, so I am buying things I do eat, but that's something to just be aware of. I used to go shopping for clothes and things like that. I don't do that as much. In fact, I really don't like doing that. As I've gotten older, I'm just so much less motivated by things. In fact, I'm trying to get rid of stuff as compared to getting more stuff. But if you're still in that kind of area where you're getting a dopamine hit from buying things, then that's really important. You want to understand the emotional triggers or reasons behind your overspending. Are you using shopping as a way to cope with stress or pressure at work or home, or possibly dealing with your emotions or trauma? It's really important. And one thing I really encourage you to do, and I've done this on eating, as you may or may not know, I weigh literally my ideal weight. I haven't weighed this weight since I was in my 20s. And really, all I've done is really taught my limbic brain that from 3 to 5, I don't have to eat. Like right now, it's 3 p.m. I'm like, okay, I'm hungry, but I'm like, okay, I'm fine. It's just, I'm used to it. And the key when you experience this, whether it's food, alcohol, or spending money, is you feel like buying something, you feel like eating something, you feel like having a drink, is to just sit in that feeling and just notice it. I like to act like I'm describing it to like an alien. How do you feel? Well, I feel a little hungry. My stomach's like growling a little bit. I feel a little bit anxious. I feel like I'm kind of hungry. I'm wondering if I can make it to dinner. Oh, that's all? You're going to survive. And you don't want to go and do anything to distract yourself. You don't want to go drink water or herbal tea. That's what I used to do. And my coach taught me, no, just sit in it. And that has been so powerful because you learn that you can do it. And it teaches your limbic brain that you're in the driver's seat. Your prefrontal cortex is driving the show, and you're not going to succumb to those urges, those emotions. So powerful, so important. The next step is to set realistic goals. While I typically don't love realistic goals, when you spend too much, realistic goals can be really helpful. The areas that I really don't like realistic goals is when you're looking at what you can achieve or you're earning. I find that really limits a person and keeps you stuck. But when we're looking at just creating a baseline and getting our spending under control, it can be very helpful. You want to establish clear financial goals, both for the short term and long term. These goals can help motivate you and help you curb unnecessary spending. Break down your goals into achievable steps and determine how your spending aligns with your habits and those goals. This is also going to help with lifestyle creep, which is what happens when we make more money and then spend more money. We've got to get really clear on what we need to spend and what we can save. And possibly one of the most important lessons I learned from a centime millionaire, someone who has a net worth of over 100 million, is to not get in the habit that most people do, that they make more money and spend more money, make more money, spend more money. Instead, you make more money and you accumulate more wealth. That's the power. The next thing is prioritize needs over wants. You want to determine what is a need and what is a want. Focus first on covering your essential expenses, which are your need expenses like housing, utility, essential food, debt payments, etc. And before making a purchase, always ask yourself if it's something you really need or you could do without. And we'll talk about the 3-day rule here in a minute. And then use cash or a debit card. And the reason you want to do that is because it comes right out of your account and you've got to pay more attention to that as compared to a credit card. Now, one of the things I do, because I do use credit cards, because one, I get air miles and the other one, I get cash back, is I just pay it off. Like it's paid every single week. Interestingly enough, I almost always have it even a little bit more money in there paid than I owe. Because on one of mine, I know what I spend, my average monthly budget, and I just have it automatically transferred over. But I personally just like having it paid as I go so that I really know the true balance in my accounts. Now, I realize that that might not be the smartest thing because I could be earning money on that, but these are mostly business accounts. I don't do that on my personal. Our personal one comes directly out of our checking every month, but these are on my business ones. And, they're a big number. And so I just like knowing that number, and I find that it really works well for me. The key here is try different things and see what works for you. As long as you're not overspending and you're living within your budget, you're fine. Implement the 3-day rule. For non-planned needed purchases, I want you to wait 3 days before making a decision to buy something. This is going to give you time to think about, do you need the item and can you afford it? And it also gives your prefrontal cortex, that rational brain, time to start working and kicking into gear and saying, wait a minute, you don't want to be a bag lady in retirement. So let's think about this purchase. It's amazing what can happen by just pushing the pause button. And then you want to avoid impulse buying. Make a shopping list before going to the store and stick to it. That's why my husband does our grocery shopping, is because I'm not good at that. I'm the kind of person that I want to make sure I have plenty of it and I don't want to have to worry about going back to the store. He could go to 4 stores and it wouldn't bother him. It would drive me crazy because for me, time is money. So again, you've got to have a balance there, but just make sure if you're going shopping, especially for groceries, have a list and don't go when you're hungry. I always go when I'm hungry, which is also a big no-no. Unsubscribe from promotional emails or newsletters that tempt you to make impulse purchases online. This is so important because now with the online factor, you're on your computer and you're like, oh, I want to do it. Or you have your credit card tied to your Facebook account. Unattach those. Make it more difficult. You can lock credit cards in a safe. And if you don't have the discipline to keep them there, find somebody who you really trust, give them the combination to the safe and say, don't give this to me if I come to you with an impulse buy. Really, really powerful. Find alternative activities and hobbies that are not expensive. Look at free or low cost activities as alternatives to spending money on entertainment or leisure. For example, hiking. I'd love to hike. Yeah, you have to have hiking shoes, a little bit of equipment, meaning like a backpack, but nothing major. Engage in hobbies, exercise, or socializations without always involving spending money. Some of my favorite things don't involve spending money. Now, we do belong to a club, which is more of a high end club. It is expensive, but it works for us because we can go to different clubs when we travel. And I like to go to classes for weight training. However, that said, you can just buy some barbells and do it in your home, or you can do yoga. I do yoga every morning. I don't have to go to a club. That is a perk. And it's just something that I give myself, but you most certainly do not have to have it. And some of the best things are free. Consider hiring a qualified advisor. They can help you create a plan that you can then implement. And the key there is to continue to monitor and tweak your plan and also set consequences. So if you have a goal that you need to save X amount per week and you hit it, I encourage you to give yourself a positive consequence, like a massage. If you don't, then you need to make a donation to your least favorite charity or political organization. So powerful to have consequences. Enroll family and friends who will hold you to your financial goals and are committed to help you stop overspending. And I encourage you to just sit down with your friends, share with them that you're committed to creating a plan to secure your financial future. And that's going to entail that you not overspend. So you'd like to spend time with them, but you don't want it to be on a shopping spree. Now, if you have friends or family who don't support you, just like an alcoholic, somebody who's been an alcoholic and is now sober, a lot of times they have to establish new friendships and they have to reevaluate current ones. Because if somebody's not supporting you and you're finding that it's difficult to stick to your budget when you're with them, you may need to find friends that have more aligned values. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes people have to go. It's something that you got to be aware of. Now, if it happens to be a partner or a spouse, I really encourage you to try to get professional help. If they will not do it, then you're going to have to make a tough decision. And it may even mean hiring an attorney to see what you can do to protect yourself. But I have seen disastrous situations where you have a spendthrift. In fact, very prominent doctor married to a spendthrift, and the guy makes millions of dollars a year, and he had to borrow money from one of his children to make payroll. I mean, that is not acceptable. It's just the spouse has several addiction problems, and her dopamine is so out of control that she's constantly having to do things to get hits. And while I don't personally know them, I know somebody that is friends with the family. It's just devastating to hear about. And then consider professional help. If you find it challenging to control your spending despite your best efforts, consider seeking help from a financial counselor or therapist who specializes in financial issues. And also remember that breaking habits, including overspending, overdrinking, overeating, is going to take some time and effort. Be patient with yourself and stay focused on your big picture goals. Small changes in your spending habits over time can lead to significant improvements in your financial well-being. And as I shared, I started investing $25 a month 35 years ago, and I did not have one extra penny. And it's that discipline that has really gotten me to where I am today. I am convinced of it. All right, I want to give you a couple final tips. There was a 2021 analysis that found that some of these financial self-control strategies really help people to limit their overspending and to increase savings. So, number one, always have a shopping list before you go purchase items, including groceries. Determine why you're pursuing your goal. Like, why do you want to save money for retirement? You want to live near the water. You want to live in your dream home. You don't want to worry about money. Get clear on that. Pay cash as opposed to using credit cards. Track weekly savings deposits. And I would add to that, track expenses. Use a savings account with no early withdrawals, meaning you can't take money out. Keep budgets for shopping trips and really any trips, I think. Anticipate regretting a purchasing decision. Like you buy something, you know you can't afford it, and then you really regret it. Set specific savings goals. One of the things they've talked about is keeping cash in larger denominations. And I'd be really interested in that one. I don't know that I fully agree with that. I find that I spend less when I have smaller bills. But again, you got to look at your habits. And then make money harder to access. And then ideally do some retirement projection planning so you can really determine how much money you're going to have, more importantly, how much you're going to need. It can make all the difference. So there you have it. Now, wasn't that easy? I encourage you to go back and if you need to, re-listen, but just identify one thing you're going to start taking action on and then the next. Start with 3 and you can go from there. You'll be so glad you did. Thank you so much for joining me for Overspending, Why We Do It, and How to Avoid It. If you love the content of this podcast, please follow and subscribe to our channel so you get notified of episodes, and also give us a 5-star review and share a comment. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money, or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement, or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for Next Step Finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Ba'u, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.